This week on the Walk On podcast, whether it's a health journey, whether it's learning to train for a triathlon, it's not sexy. It's showing up every day and doing the work. The things that aren't as important fall off when they become work.
I actually think one of the things about these drugs that's so great is that it gives people a boost in the beginning, right? You get like this head start. And so you see the progress and you want to keep going. It's very hard when you're starting a wellness journey to see progress early on, right? It's short-term gains versus long-term gains. It's a very hard thing for most people to swallow and to accept. And so you have to find little wins in every day and congratulate yourselves on the things that you accomplish every day so that you're encouraged to keep going.
Hello and welcome to the Walk On podcast. This will be the final episode of season 5. I can't believe we're moving that quickly through it. It's a perfect guest to end it with. We've had some really interesting topics. We've had some really interesting guests. We've had friends. We've had family. And this is a friend that goes back probably as long as many of the friends I'm still spending time with. We went to college. But before I welcome our guest, let me do a recap of the podcast, right? This is the Walk On podcast, really talking about helping people find their passion and purpose. So we're talking to people and interviewing guests who have done that, who are living interesting lives, who are doing things that fill them up. But we also realized, and I posted something about this the other day, that to maintain my interest, to maintain your interest, if we just have the same conversation about passion and purpose, that's going to be a short-lived conversation. So what we want to do is also really talk about the issues and the subject matter that these guests are experts in. We've got them here. Let's leverage that. So you'll get a bit of both. You'll get a bit of both of the passion and purpose, which is the goal here, but also what's the topic. And so with that, I'm thrilled to welcome Joanne Schell. She is, as I said, we went to college together. I can say two things about college with Jo. One, it would have been a lot more boring had we not been friends. And two, I probably would not have passed my political science stats class if it weren't for Jo. So thank you for that. And Jo is a healthy habits counselor, owner of Blueberry Nutrition, incredibly smart person, dynamic, and really, truly glad to call you a friend and glad to have you on the podcast. Welcome, Jo.
Well, thank you so much. I'm very honored to be the season finale.
Yeah, no pressure. No pressure there.
Yeah, none. No. Nothing with you.
It's going to be a piece of cake. So Jo,
Yes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit more about your bio? I did not do it justice and figured you'd walk us through where you are and what you're up to.
Sure. So I do healthy habits counseling, which is basically just encouraging people to change and allowing them to take the lead in their own health and wellness. And that incorporates everything from diet and exercise to sleep and stress and time management. So it's sort of a little bit of everything. And I got my first certification, I want to say 8 or 9 years ago with precision nutrition. I went on to get several others, including Girls Gone Strong, which is women specific. And now I am back in school. I am going through a wellness coaching program that will allow me to take a board exam. And that board exam allows me to take health insurance and work for, larger medical companies, things like that. But I have been into fitness since, I want to say freshman year in college, but it really turned on when I had kids and needed a break from them. So I had a 2-hour pass at the gym and I used that up every single day. And that sort of ignited my passion.
I love that background and really love watching your career. I'm curious, before we get into some of the details of being a health counselor, what drew you to that space? You mentioned, fitness in your life, but what drew you to helping others?
So I think my entire young adulthood, right? I mean, you and I were in poli-sci together. I went to graduate school in DC for a master's in public administration. I really thought that was going to be my life. I was all set to, run for state senate and do all kinds of other things, right? And I met my husband, Chris, about 10 days before I left, and everything got turned upside down. I spent a lot of time long distance dating or, long distance engagement. And I worked at Williams-Sonoma and spent hours doing my registry for my wedding and wasn't really focused on the task at hand, and instantly moved back to Philly, and finding a job in that space was really, really difficult. And so from day one of being an adult and going into the working world, it was all sort of what would work, what would fit. I started in publishing because I was on the law review when I was in graduate school. And they took insurance, health insurance. They gave us health insurance. Chris didn't have it at the time. So that was the first job I had to take. Then I had twins. And I got laid off when my boss found out I was pregnant, which is a no-no, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
And so I was out for a while. I went back into publishing. Then I left again. It was too hard with both boys. And luckily enough, we didn't really need my income, but I started having an existential crisis in '09 and went back to work. And that one was another job of convenience where like I could take off when the kids were sick and take vacation when Chris could take vacation. And I ended up in accounting and HR, which, you know me, that's like doing everything with my left hand. It was highly educational, but very unpleasant. For a
Yeah.
decade, I did that. And it was a great place to be and a great work environment, but it wasn't my passion. And so it really took until my kids started getting ready for college that I had the opportunity to really think about what was meaningful to me. And I think you touched on it. What is meaningful to me is to be of service to other people. And this job allows me to sort of combine my passions. Chris always says my hobby is self-improvement. And so I'm allowing, myself to take the interest of self-improvement and use it in service to other people. So I think that's what really fires me up about it for sure.
I love that. The hobby of self-improvement and putting that to work for other people. That's fantastic.
Well, thank you.
I must say, you have a great family. You have two thriving boys. You have a husband who's a Grateful Dead fan. So I shout out for that. Good taste in music and clearly in spouse choices. That's a really interesting journey. And I think as you were going through that sort of working of convenience or working of the opportunities that presented themselves, what was the pivot point where you're like, you know what, I do want to take this passion I have for self-improvement and I do want to explore bringing that to other people? What was that we've talked about pivot as we were coming on the air.
Yeah.
What was that moment for you? What was that moment for you?
Well, I used a life coach, a professional coach, which was really helpful in helping me sort of tune into what I was passionate about. I'm lucky enough to have choices and to not have to worry about eating, right? Like these are like my Maslow's hierarchy of needs are met. And so I have the luxury of having an existential crisis and being able to self-examine. Like to me, that's a gift, right? And so I remember being in an office of a nutritionist, a trainer. I was working out at the gym and asking all of these questions. And she said to me, you should just go study this. Like you're geeking out more than anybody I've ever seen. And not everyone needs to know the details of all of these instructions that I'm giving you. It sounds like this is something that you're passionate about. And so that's how I got into it.
So what did you hear when that was translated to you that you ought to go do this? What was that first thought?
It was an opportunity to go back to school, how much I love school, right? So that was great. And I could do it on my own time. It's, remote and a lot of Zoom. So that was really easy for me. I could self-pace. So it was fitting into my schedule when the boys were 16. So they started driving and having their own lives. And I finally had some time to myself a little bit more. And so some opportunities opened up for me to spend time doing things that I was interested as opposed to constantly, sort of being the support system around here. So it felt in a way like a selfish move, not in a negative sense, but in a doing something for me.
For you. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a way to do something for me for sure.
Yeah. And now turning that into doing for others. I'm curious, right? I went back to school as well and am a certified executive leadership and performance coach. And I'm curious, you did this a number of years ago and, both health, coaching and executive leadership coaching and life coaching, they've really exploded as industries. I saw a data point the other day that the executive leadership coaching business will be like $24 billion by the next 3 years, right?
Wow.
What was that original perception? You go to school, you get certified, you go out into the marketplace. What was the perception of people hearing? And I know you worked hard, by the way. I saw your initial social media posts, and I want to get into that in a second. But what was that initial perception of here's a wellness coach?
A lot of eye rolling. I
Yeah.
mean, to be perfectly honest, it's a lot of eye rolling, and rightfully so, right? There's
Yeah.
people that sell supplements who call themselves health coaches. There's people who hawk, all kinds of really
Yep.
harmful things and call themselves health coaches. And there really is like an ocean of people in my space, especially on social media. And it was
Yep.
really difficult to find a way to stand out. And
Mhm.
additionally, the reality of health and wellness coaching is that none of it is sexy. There's not like a tea or, some way to eat that's going to like
Yeah.
make you all of a sudden turn into a supermodel. It's
Yeah.
very basic, it's very fundamental, and honestly, it's very boring. And people
Mm.
don't want boring. They want to say, "Oh, I'm on this new diet," or "Oh, I'm on this."
Yep.
It's like I always liken it to getting your trapper keeper the first day of school, and you're all excited with your pens and your pencils, and you have this like new strategy. And 3 weeks into it, your backpack's a mess, and you could give two,
Yeah.
what's about going to class, and you're sort of over it. And you're ready for the next year to start so you can get a new trapper keeper. And that's what wellness is for most
Yeah.
people. They have shiny
Mm.
object syndrome. They're constantly looking for the next thing that they
Yeah.
think is going to solve the problem, whereas
Mhm.
it's just super boring. And so, for me to say I'm a health coach, as hard as I worked, it was really hard to stand out, A, as a legitimate person with
Yeah.
knowledge, and B, just in a general sense from sort of the rest of the health coaches that exist.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot
Yeah.
to unpack there. First, I want to say thanks for outing us at how old we are by talking about trapper keepers. So thanks for that. Secondly, what you said really resonates with me. That's why I chose going back to Brown University, right? I looked at a lot of different coaching programs. Some were cheaper, some were quicker, getting me to where I needed to be. Some were actually really interesting programs. Some were really strong programs, but they didn't have sort of a universal cachet like an Ivy League school. And so
Right.
while, there was a school in New Jersey that people in the Northeast know, and it was an amazing program, I didn't go there because I wanted something universally, that said, oh, that's a person that went to some place that they're not just giving out certifications, right? So I
Right.
think credentialing was important. The other thing is I was really struck by, and you touched on it a little bit, going for your new trapper keeper. I get it. We didn't have a ton of means growing up, so we also used the paper bag around our books. But anyway,
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
other conversation. Yeah. So, but where I was going with that before that trip down amnesia lane was that it's a quick fix, right? Health and wellness. We want to take some Ozempic. We want to, do this miracle cayenne pepper drink that's going to drop 30 pounds in 2 weeks because I saw it on social media. But then I have to go back and try something new because I gained back the 5 pounds of water weight I lost. Right.
Right.
So that you're
Right.
confronting that. How do you get through to people, or are you people finding you then who are like, no, I am committed to that change. I'm not looking for a quick fix. How do your clients show up in that way?
So I'm sure you know this with Lewis, right? You can't get people to just do something. They need to do it on their own accord. If you tell them to do it, they're either going to comply for a little while and then
Mhm.
rebel, or they're going to rebel from the offset. So
Yep.
the idea is to have all of the ideas start and initiate from the client and what the client wants. So,
Mhm.
a lot of them come to me in the beginning wanting to lose 10 pounds or 5 pounds. And almost always that goal changes to I just want to live a healthier life. It's just a
Wow.
matter of going through the process for a little while and realizing what's important.
Mm.
And the action of trying to get healthy makes you a healthy person. It makes you a
Mm.
person that takes care of your health, right? It's like what James Clear says. It's every action is a vote for the person that you want to be, right? So
Mm.
walking them through a process that they are in control of, that on a scale of 1 to 10, they have a 9 or 10 confidence level that they're going to be able to follow through with those actions. That's really the key to getting them sort of off of that, roller coaster. And
Yeah.
as far as Ozempic is concerned, it's actually an amazing drug. So is Wegovy, so is Manjaro. They're all incredible. However, if all you're going to do is eat, 5 French fries instead of 15 French fries,
Yeah.
you may be losing weight, but you're not getting healthier. So My theory and my feeling about those drugs is it's a wonderful way to clear your mind of the food noise that has been blinding
Mhm.
you and deafening you for your entire life. And it
Yep.
gives you space in your brain to actually take the time to make some lifestyle changes. If
Yeah.
you can take advantage of it in that quiet, then you're set for life.
Yeah. So I'm going to out myself and share something that I've not shared, and I don't know that you know this, Joe, but I've actually been taking one of those medications, and I struggled, as you know, right? In college, I would get fit for hockey season. Hockey season would end, and I would literally gain 40 pounds by the end of the year. And I've ridden that my entire life, and it just got to a point where I started creeping up with pre-diabetes that kept showing up on my blood tests, and I just couldn't make the changes.
Yep.
And so the medication, it really felt life-changing, transformative. I've lost, in the last 18 months, and I did it for like 6 months and stopped and then did it for another short run. But it was that clearing that you talked about. And it allowed me to say, okay, I have some freedom now. I have some control. So what choices can I make? What things can I do to maintain this? And I think other than the holidays, I gained like 5 pounds and was able to lose it again. And so it is trying to build those habits. And I love what you said, getting rid of the noise, because I wasn't morbidly obese. I was obese for my body size. And it was this constant noise. It was this constant, I would sit down and it wouldn't be, "Oh, I'll have a slice of pizza." It'd be like, why didn't I just finish the pizza? And it was just innately in my body. So anyway, I'm going too much about me, but I really appreciate you saying that. And I think there's a level of honesty I want to share, just because there's a stigma with it. And I get the privilege of being able to afford it and all those sorts of things with insurance. And there are a lot of people who don't have access to it. Whole other conversation. But it did quiet the noise for me, and it gave me choices.
Yep, yep. And I always say that, your habits are like a super highway in your brain, right? And if they're bad, that's like the route that you always take. Imagine driving home for work. You like kind of forget that you're even driving. You're not really paying
Mm,
attention. All of a sudden you're home. That's what those bad habits can be like. And starting new ones are like digging a road in the dirt, and it's rocky and it's
mm,
bumpy and there's, construction cones in the way. And it takes a long time to turn that into the superhighway.
yeah.
So you have to be able to be patient with yourself. Repetition is huge, right? And
Yep.
I always look at things on a dial. So, to me, like when you can be at a 10, right? When you can dial in all your food and exercise every day and get a good night's sleep, that's awesome. But that's not
Mhm.
real life. Real life
Yep.
is some of those days you're going to be at a 1 because you got in at 2:30 in the morning from a flight, and
Yeah.
there's nothing to eat at the airport, and you're out to dinner with clients. It could be a million different things,
Yep.
but you have to sort of decide to stay on that dial and not keep
Yep.
kind of jumping on and off the wagon. And the
Yeah.
meds will help you do that for sure.
Yeah. I think the other thing that I is really critical there to me too is giving yourself grace. Like you just, and I know you were talking about me there, but
Yeah.
that happened, right? Home at 2:30
Yeah.
last night. The night before, I slept for 3 hours because I just had terrible sleep in a hotel, stressful day, stuck in the airport. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to have a cocktail. And there's a great restaurant in the airport. And I had some food that wasn't great. It was smaller portions. And normally I would today hate myself, right? And I'd be like, oh my God. And I would have done 5 extra exercises and I would have done all this stuff. And today I said, you know what? I'm going to give myself grace. I'm going to take a break, and I'm making smart choices today. I'm just going to get back into habits. And
That's
before I
exactly
would have
right.
like beat myself up.
Yep. Yep. I have this little thing I call anchor meals. So
Mm,
for I like to help clients come up with a breakfast, lunch, and a dinner that
mm,
under any circumstances they can make. It sort of fits all their macros. It has enough protein, it has enough fiber in it, it doesn't have a lot of sugar. And they always know to go back to those things. So instead
wow.
of going on a juice cleanse, right? Like when they eat
Mhm.
something bad, they just go back to their anchor meals. And, you don't need to eat the same thing every day for the rest of your life, but it's a touch point for you to say, okay, I'm back to healthy habits again.
Wow. I love that. And I'm assuming then it becomes a mental as well as a physical touch point of getting something healthy and balanced in your body, but also your
That's
mind goes,
exactly
oh,
right.
we're getting back.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly
So
right.
when you were talking about your process, the program I went to at Brown, it's called ACT, and the part of the acronym is awareness, choice, and transformation. Right? I don't. as you, it sounds like I don't tell clients what to do. I don't answer questions for them. It's helping them find awareness of the things that are powerful for them or blockages for them. And that creates choice that they then decide their adventure. And that leads to transformation. And I heard you talking about choice in there, the rocky road. And it's not a linear path, right? It's a journey from, this reactive lifestyle to creative, sort of the flow state, not to get all nerdy on theory, but that's it, right? And sometimes you're going to fall back and sometimes you're going to be in an eddy. And it's being aware, having choices, and transforming. Is that sort of a similar path that your clients go on or you want them to go on?
Yeah. I mean, ironically, the N in Blueberry Nutrition is a crook. It's like not a straight line. It's an arrow, but it goes sort of back and forth. And that's actually to illustrate that progress is not a straight line, that you're going to have setbacks. Usually what I do is the beginning of what we sort of call a generative moment is talking to clients about, if you could wake up tomorrow morning and all of your goals were met, what does that look like for you? Tell me how your day is spent. Tell me what actions you're performing. Tell me how you feel about yourself. Tell me what it looks like, what it smells like. Really get into that future self moment. And then we sort of brainstorm to think about ways to get there. And they are in charge of choosing the path. I use a lot of BJ Fogg, Tiny Habits guy. He's amazing. He has this really interesting exercise where you brainstorm every idea that you can think of. Nothing is off limits. And then you sort of put them on a graph from highest effort to lowest effort, biggest impact to smallest impact. And what you're looking for is the smallest action you can take with the largest amount of impact. And so once you find that, then it sort of encourages you and encourages the client to sort of say, well, hey, that's something I can do. It doesn't seem difficult at all. And it's going to make a really big impact in my wellness journey. And so by kind of throwing spaghetti on the wall and then really pinpointing the things that will have the most impact for that person, they're more likely to choose the things that are going to give them success.
Yeah, it sounds like you're helping them build a toolbox for what life throws at them on their journey.
Sure. 100%. I mean, that's what you need, right? Like, this is not, it's an endless slog, really. And that's the part that isn't really sexy or enticing to people and why they have this shiny object syndrome. It's because it's an endless slog. I mean, in December, I was on all cylinders. Like I had been running for the first time in a decade. I had all my food dialed in. I was thinner than I was before COVID. Like I was killing it. And I got a stomach virus and then a stress fracture in December. Bing, bang, boom. And I couldn't work out for about 7 months. I got 2 days of skiing in, which for me is like a disaster, right? So I didn't get to exercise. I was depressed. I was eating all kinds of junk. I was miserable. But that was like my journey this year. That's what it was. I didn't really have a choice. And I've been getting back to running, but then I got sick and I had to take a couple of weeks off. I got back to running and then I ran on an uneven surface and had to take another week off, right? And this is what it is, right? We have to surrender to the reality of our lives that you're not going to be perfect all the time and you're not going to be in the zone and in flow all the time. And you need tools to help you reset.
Yeah. And, I share this a lot with people, and it depends on your perspective of life. This could be morbid or really optimistic, but life is a series of peaks and valleys. And more often than not, it's valleys. And if you didn't have those valleys, though, the peaks would be meaningless. It would just be this linear life and you wouldn't have things to celebrate. So, I mean, I love that you knew where you wanted to be and just sort of giving yourself that grace that this is where I am and I'm going to do the things I can do and get back to where you want to be. That's really powerful. So I want to go back to sort of one of the things we glossed over, but I think is really huge. And I'm going to ask 2 questions. You can decide how to answer them. They may be linked, they may not. The first is, what's the biggest misperception about wellness today? And then maybe tied to that is social media offers, as we talked about, this onslaught of consultants and fads and advice. So how do you stand out in that marketplace as an authority, both for a competitive business advantage, but also as someone who's credentialed and meaningful? So 2 questions: perceptions of wellness and how do you stand out in this muddled, fad-driven marketplace?
I think the biggest right now, like currently, the biggest misperception about wellness is that all these drugs are cheating. I think that's the biggest misperception.
Yeah.
And they're so not. They're not cheating at all. It's actually like life-saving, it's
Yeah.
life-changing. A lot of people who have never had success with weight loss all of a sudden are having success.
Hmm.
I also think there's a misconception that it's a magic pill, which it
Yep.
also is not, right? There's a
Yep.
tremendous potential for loss of muscle mass if you're not
Hmm.
lifting heavy weights.
Hmm.
That's where Ozempic face comes from, if anybody's
Yeah.
wondering. And there's a potential for really unhealthy habits to continue, but
Hmm.
seemingly with no consequences because you're still
Yep.
dropping weight. So, I think both sides of that coin is the biggest challenge right now. And it's part of the reason that I'm going back to school so I can work for companies that require some sort of lifestyle coaching along with the drugs, because I think
Wow. Yeah.
those things need to go hand in hand for sure.
Yeah.
That's easily the biggest misconception. I think as far as social media goes, my answer, to be quite honest, was to bail. So I
Mm.
felt like a couple things. The first is I think I spent a lot of time early on in my entrepreneurship not trusting myself, not trusting my own abilities, and not trusting my gut. And so I partnered with people who were supposed experts who were supposed to know better than me. And it
Mm.
felt like I was going against the nature of who I really was and what I really wanted to accomplish. And I wasted a lot of money and a lot of time doing that. And then I got into the social media space and was doing okay because I was tied to people who had large followings that were
Yeah.
perfectly aligned with my audience. And that was really helpful. But then when they fall off, you fall off as well. So,
Yeah.
sort of putting all your eggs in one basket like that isn't good either. I also felt like, social media can be kind of soul sucking, right? And I
Yes.
felt like I would wake up every day trying to think of something new to say, where, as I've been saying on this podcast for the last, half hour, it's not exciting. You
Yeah.
have to kind of eat slowly and healthfully, and you have to do everything in moderation. Like, there's
Yeah.
nothing cool about that. And so I have a page, it's filled with little tips and tricks and everything that I know. It's there for everybody to see. So I felt like I could share that with people.
Yeah.
But then I got done. I was like, I have nothing else
Yeah.
to say, right? There's really
Yeah.
nothing new under the sun in this. And so I get most of my clients now through referrals.
Yeah. That's so
Yeah.
there are two things, two threads I want to pull on there. Thanks for sharing that. I think the first is, yeah, whatever it is, whether it's a health journey, whether it's learning to train for a triathlon, whether it's, learning to play an instrument, it's not sexy. It's showing up every day and doing the work, right? It's
Right.
incremental progress. I mean, I've essentially at this point given up. There's a guitar sitting in my corner, but my father-in-law, who's played since he was a little kid, was like, just touch the guitar for 15 minutes a day. Just do it. And I love music with every fiber of my being. Not mathematically inclined, so that throws the music part of it out for playing. But it just didn't give me that joy where even, I wanted to touch it for 15 minutes a day. So it was hard to do that work. And with all the other things going on in my life and your life and our lives, the things that aren't as important fall off when they become work. And so I
Right.
think, yeah, that's why it's hard, right? It's not easy to be healthy. Once you dial in, you get that progress, I guess, but it's not easy.
No, and I actually think one of the things about these drugs that's so great is that it gives people a boost in the beginning, right? You get like this head start. And so you see the progress and you want to keep going. It's very hard when you're starting a wellness journey to see
Yep.
progress early on, right? And a lot of it has to do with things that you wouldn't even think about. Like, the first thing I ask people is about their sleep, because that's
Mm.
primary fat burning time. It helps you make decisions during the day. It prevents you from being cranky. It prevents you from overeating if you get a good night's sleep. And nobody wants to talk about putting their phone down before bed. Like, I still can't get Chris to put his phone down before bed, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, there's things that are unpleasant, and
Yep.
that's life about having, it's short-term gains versus long-term gains. It's short-term
Yep.
sacrifices for long-term success. It's a very hard thing for most people to swallow and to accept. And so
Yeah.
you have to find little wins in every day
Yep.
and congratulate yourselves on the things that you accomplish every day so that you're encouraged to keep going.
Yeah, I've started. So you mentioned Lewis. For those who don't know, Lewis is my young son. He's 4, and we've started every night when it's my turn to read with him. We do a gratitude check in. What are you grateful
Love it.
for today? And his is normally, oh, I got to play with this toy, or I got to, very, it melts my heart. He'll be like, well, and I got to spend, the day with you because I wasn't
Right.
campaigning or whatever. Right. So it's great. But I do that too. And I've started to try and build this habit of, saying that I'm letting go of the negativity from today, right before I go to bed, right? Letting go of the negativity that was part of my day, what I'm grateful for, and then saying that I'm open for the possibilities and the positive elements that I've created for myself, right? Trying to, as I go to
Yeah.
sleep, build those habits of get rid of the bad, celebrate the good, and be open to, what's possible out there in the universe for me.
Yeah, I have a great friend who was a business partner for a while. Her name's Libby Moore. She's an executive coach as well. She used to be Oprah's chief of staff for like 15 years. She's amazing. And that's one of the things that she really encourages as well is to like go to
Yeah.
bed and sort of clear your mental slate, right? Get
Yeah.
rid of the bad, get ready for the good, be open to all of the wisdom from the universe that can seep into your
Mhm.
soul at night.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to be thoughtful of time for our listeners and for you. What are you mentioned some tips for people. Just what are some of those initial things that might help people that are stuck on their journey or starting their journey? What are some of those things that you would recommend that they bring into their life? And we've talked about a couple, but
Yeah, I mean, the first one for sure, food wise, is putting your fork down in between bites of food. That's like a game changer. I have had people lose 20 pounds just doing that, not changing anything they ate. It helps, with GI issues. It helps with sleep. It helps your brain realize that you're eating. So it gives your body time to catch up to the food. It helps you become full more quickly. It's really an amazing tool. So that's like my number one. Number two, again, no one's going to like it. Don't be on your phone an hour before bed. If you can
yeah.
find a different place in your house to charge your phone before you go to sleep. And I also recommend having a brain dump station by your bed, which is a pen
Hmm.
and a piece of paper. And so if you start stewing over something or, oh, I forgot to do this, go take your pen. You don't even need to see what you're writing and just start writing it down. Scribble it out until it's out of your brain and on the paper. That'll help
Interesting.
you get a better night's sleep for sure. And then as far as exercise, do what you like. So don't worry about what the proper thing is, especially if you're starting from zero. Just do something that you enjoy and don't worry about 10,000 steps a day. Just start with 500 more steps than you're taking at the moment. So little steps,
500
big
more steps
changes.
than you take. Yeah.
Yeah.
I stepped on your great line there. Little steps, big changes is what you
Little
said.
steps, big changes. Yep.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You said they're not sexy, but actually the fork thing is like alarm bells going off for me. It's like pretty profound, actually. Like
It
not just
is.
sitting there shoveling food or like in between bites talking with a fork in my hand, which is just
Yeah.
crass, but that's actually profound.
Well, and you don't like it, it's always the really good stuff that we eat the fastest. So
Mm,
like you're not like gently eating an Oreo lick by lick, right? You're like shoving it down your throat. In fact, you'll love this, when snack wells were big, remember the
yeah,
snack
yeah.
well phase?
You are
So
outing
I
us, Joe. You are
I
outing our
know
age.
I had devil's food cakes on my chest,
That's
okay? And I'm like sitting there, like throwing them back 95 miles an hour. And what I thought was a crumb, I threw in my mouth and it was a stink bug. And I ate a bug. So, like, just slow down, everyone. Like, slow down, make sure what you're eating is actually food, and, take the time to enjoy what you're putting in your mouth.
I don't really have words, Joe. I'm not lost at a loss for words
Yeah,
ever.
that was a
The
moment.
stink bug, that's a moment. Wow. All
Oh,
right.
yeah.
I
Yep.
don't want to end on the stink bug. We're not going to end on the stink bug. So let's go back to the beginning then. How do
Okay.
you define for someone who's looking for that their roadmap to passion and purpose? How would you define living with passion and purpose?
I think it's a combination of being in service to others while also being of service to yourself.
Mm,
That's what I think it is. I think there's a balance there where you feel like you're doing something that is serving the world. And that doesn't have to be your job. That could be through volunteering or your family dynamics. It could be anything, but that also provides you with some joy and flow in the moment that you're doing it.
Yeah, Joe, as you know, I wrote a book on civic participation, which, by the way, it doubles as a cure for insomnia or doorstop. So if you need that, go visit Amazon for battling democracy's decline. But having said that, one of the things that there's this pressure, right? Service of others. Oh my gosh, it's this big thing. It's this grand, noble cause. No, it doesn't have to be. Service of others. As you said, we've got out my front door, we've got a church that has a food pantry. We'll, once a month buy a bushel of apples in season and take it over there, right? That's not, curing homelessness or hunger, but it's a step. It's something we can do, right? So I love that that you made that clear. Like, being service of others doesn't have to be, going and serving a mission, 4 days a week. It can be
No, I
small
mean,
things. It can be your family.
right. And one of the things that I think the thing I love most about my job is that it has helped me be a better friend and a better person in general.
Mhm.
I had to be a better listener. I have to be less judgmental. I have to be more empathetic. I mean, these are all things that are required by a coach, but it also makes you a much better human being. And so
Yeah.
everybody wants to be seen and heard. And if you can provide that gift to one other human being, you are being of service, and it's enough.
That's amazing. So before ending, I guess I'm sort of again stumbling on my words, because that was really beautiful and thoughtful and appreciated. So thank you for sharing that. What advice would you give then for others who are really struggling to find that purpose or passion?
Well, I think taking the pressure off is one part of it, right? Throw spaghetti on the wall and try a bunch of different things if you're lucky enough to be able to do that. And that can be, one of the things I love to do with my clients is have them write down literally how they've spent every single minute of their day, just for a day or two. And then to look at it and say, is this the life you want to be living? And how much of this is
Right.
a choice? And how much of it is habit? And how much of it is obligations to other people that really aren't accurate or true? Things that you might feel like you should be doing, even though you don't necessarily have to. And
Yeah.
be the architect of your own life, be your own guru, and live with intention.
I love it. It's a perfect way to end this. It really is amazing, actually, as you talk about friends. We don't get to talk all the time, and it just feels like, sliding back into Iva Deutschman's class. And
It really does.
we could. That's the great thing about friendship. Time passes, but you have real bonds and real relationships, and so I want to celebrate that and appreciate you, and thank you for being on the podcast.
Oh, thank you, Melzy.
So where can people find out more about the work that you do?
They can go to @blueberry.nutrition on Instagram, or you can email me at askblueberrynutrition@gmail.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So thanks again, Joe. This is the Walk On Podcast, people leading with passion and purpose, providing a roadmap for your personal journey. Hear their stories, find your passion, walk on. Thanks again, Joe.
Well, I was hanging around when you noticed me looking at you. Well, I've been staring for hours.